Have you ever sat down to write and within 10 minutes, your shoulders are tight, your neck is aching, or your wrist starts to hurt from the way you're using the keyboard or mouse? And then, because you're a writer, your brain tries to solve the discomfort by creating a very convincing story. Maybe I need a better chair before I can really focus. Maybe I need a new ergonomic keyboard before I can write properly. Maybe I need to fix my whole setup before I can get back into flow. And sometimes, yes, your body genuinely is asking for better support, and that's so important in writing, which we're going to talk about today. But sometimes the search for the perfect setup can become another way of delaying the writing itself. So where's the line? How do you care for your body, protect your energy, and create a writing space that supports your creative flow without turning your desk setup into the next thing you have to perfect before you let yourself write? Today's Writing Wednesday episode is about ergonomics, energy, and creative flow. And yes, we're going to talk about desks, chairs, screens, and movement breaks. But beneath that, we're talking about something much bigger. Because writing is a long-term relationship with your body. Your mind might be willing, your story might be calling, and your book might matter deeply to you. But if your body is uncomfortable, tense, or constantly pushing through pain, writing can start to feel harder than it needs to. And if your body begins to associate the desk with discomfort, part of you might begin searching for the next solution before you've even opened the document. So today we're going to look at your writing setup with curiosity, care, and a very practical lens, because your body is part of the writing process. And if you want to keep writing for years to come, caring for your body has to become part of the way you write. So stay with me. If you feel called to write a book, but writer's block, procrastination, and self-doubt keep pulling you from the page, you're not alone, and you're not meant to stay stuck. Hi, I'm Madison Michaels, author and life coach, and I've created this podcast as a creative space grounded in faith and mindset transformations to help you break through your blocks, gain creative clarity, and finally finish the book you're meant to write. So grab your cup of liquid gold and let's write the darn book together. Before we dive in today, I'm so excited to let you know that on the 30th of June, I'm hosting a free masterclass on Zoom called Write to Your Wiring, Discover Your NLP Modality and How It Shapes the Way You Write. In this session, I'll be helping you understand how your mind naturally processes creativity, story, structure, dialogue, and emotion so that you can start working with the way you're uniquely wired to write rather than trying to force yourself into a process that was never designed for you. We'll explore the 4 NLP modalities for writers: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and auditory digital, and you'll begin to recognize how your dominant modality shapes the way you access your story, where you tend to get stuck, and what helps the words start flowing again. You'll find all the details in the show notes, or you can visit madisonmichaels.com/masterclass. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Write the Darn Book. I'm your host, Madison Michaels, and today is a Writing Wednesday episode, which means we're looking at the practical side of writing through the Write the Darn Book lens of mindset, creative wiring, and actually finishing the book. And today's topic might sound very practical on the surface, and it is, but today we're also talking about your writing setup, your desk, your chair, your screen, and the way your body feels when you sit down to write. But this is also a momentum conversation because the setup you write in can either support your creative flow or quietly drain it. Now, I want to say this really clearly at the beginning. This episode is writer-to-writer support. It's general practical guidance, not medical advice. So if you are experiencing any ongoing pain, numbness, tingling, or headaches, please speak to a qualified health professional who can look at your specific body and circumstances properly, because this really does matter. A lot of writers spend so much time thinking about how to look after their manuscript and very little time thinking about how to look after their body that has to sit there and write it. And I get it, truly I do, because this has been a huge part of my own writing life. But I think sometimes we forget that writing is physical, especially because we're sitting at a desk all the time. We often talk about creativity as if it's floating somewhere above us. We talk about story, structure, voice, and confidence, and all of those things matter deeply. But the actual act of writing happens through your body. Your hands are typing, your eyes are tracking the screen, and your shoulders are holding your arms in place. Your nervous system is taking in the whole environment and deciding whether this feels safe, sustainable, and doable. So when your body is uncomfortable, your writing brain receives that information. And sometimes the thing you've been calling procrastination might actually have a physical layer to it. Maybe your body knows that every time you sit down at the desk, your neck starts aching. Maybe your wrist starts to flare up after 10 minutes using the mouse. Maybe your hips feel locked up because you've been sitting so long. And then the next time you sit down to write, part of your system hesitates. But instead of recognizing that hesitation as a body care signal, your mind might turn it into a setup problem. Maybe I need a better chair. Maybe I need to research a different style keyboard. Maybe I need to fix my whole writing space before I can actually write properly. And sometimes, yes, one of those things might genuinely be helpful for your body and writing. But sometimes too, the search for the better setup becomes the thing that keeps you circling the writing instead of actually entering it. And I know this from personal experience. And that is why we need to hold both truths at once. Your body deserves support, and your writing still needs to be able to come back to the page. That's why this conversation matters, my friends, because you are not trying to get through one writing session. You're building a writing life, and a writing life needs a body that is cared for. Now, I'm going to share my own experience here because this is absolutely not theoretical for me. Before I became a full-time author and coach, I spent 18 years in the police. And from that work, I ended up with a shoulder injury that still affects me now. And it can flare up when I'm using a mouse for too long, typing in a poor body position, or sitting at my desk with my arm held in a way that my shoulder really doesn't appreciate. And when it does flare up, it can trigger really bad shoulder pain and headaches, debilitating ones sometimes. So I've had to become very conscious of my writing setup. I use a sit-stand desk, I have a walking treadmill underneath it, and I do use an ergonomic keyboard. I also have 3 monitors because, yes, I'm absolutely a bit of a digital gadget girl. I love trying things that might support my body, my mind, and my creative flow, so I do that lots. I also have a rebounder, which I use for movement and lymphatic support, and I have a posture brace, one of those shoulder back straps that helps to support my shoulders when I need it. And lately, I've been sitting on a bouncy ball at my desk, even though I have an ergonomic chair. I was actually finding that my hips and my backside were getting really sore from sitting in the chair for long stretches. So the bouncy balls actually really helped with my posture and the support. So yes, I've tried everything. I've tried lots of ergonomic things. And for me, none of them on its own have been the magic answer. They all have, though, supported my writing and my body in some way. So now I'm sharing all of that because I want to normalise the fact that writers have bodies with real needs. Some writers have injuries, some have chronic pain, some have wrist or shoulder or back issues, and some writers are doing other work at a computer all day than asking the same body to keep going at night. And that's a lot for the body. And I think we need to be kinder and more practical about that. Because if writing hurts or if writing consistently leads to discomfort, the answer isn't to shame yourself into pushing harder. The better question to ask is, what support does my body need so I can keep showing up for my book? Let's talk about this from a resistance point of view, because this is where the inner work and outer work meet. If your body feels uncomfortable every time you sit down to write, your nervous system starts collecting evidence. It learns the pattern that desk equals tension, perhaps laptop equals headache, or mouse equals shoulder pain. I know that one too well. And once that pattern is established, avoidance can start looking very logical to the deeper part of your mind. But in this case, avoidance might not look like obvious avoidance. It might look like productivity. You might suddenly spend an hour researching ergonomic chairs. You might compare keyboards, sit-stand desks, or monitor stands. You might decide that you need to reorganise your whole room before you can possibly write in it. And again, sometimes those changes are genuinely useful. But sometimes the discomfort becomes a doorway into another kind of procrastination. Not doom scrolling and not giving up, but preparing, improving, fixing, getting ready. And that can feel very convincing because there is some truth in it. Your body absolutely might need support. Your setup definitely could need attention, and your desk might need a practical adjustment. But the question is, are you making a change that helps you return to your writing? Or are you making the setup the next thing that has to be perfect before you begin writing? That's the line we're looking at today, because your chair isn't just a chair, and your desk isn't just a desk, and your screen isn't just a screen. They're part of the environment that your brain and body step into when it comes time to write. So if that environment is awkward, painful, or draining, your creative flow has to work harder. And if that environment feels supportive enough, then your writing has a better chance of actually beginning. Notice I said supportive enough, because I'm not here to tell you that you need the perfect office before you can write. That in itself can become its own trap, and we'll get to that in a moment. But your setup does need to be workable. It needs to support the body that you are actually writing in, not the imaginary version of you who can sit perfectly still for 4 hours and type without consequence. So let's make this really practical. The first thing I want you to do is look at how your body actually meets the page. Not in theory, but in real life. When you sit down to write, what happens in your shoulders? Do they lift? Do they round forward? Does one arm reach too far for the mouse? And what happens after you've been sitting for a while? Does your lower back feel compressed? Do your eyes get tired? Do you start clenching your jaw without realising? These are all clues. And they're not reasons to panic, they're simply information. And once you have that information, you can make small changes. Maybe your keyboard needs to come closer. Maybe your monitor needs to be raised. Maybe your feet need better support. The point is not to become obsessed with your writing setup. The point is to stop ignoring what your body is already telling you, because your body will usually whisper before it starts getting louder and louder and starts screaming. A little tightness, a little ache, a little warning sign. But if we keep pushing through those signals without changing anything, sometimes the body makes the message louder. And for writers, that can become a real problem. A wrist issue, a shoulder flare-up, or a headache pattern can take you out of writing for far longer than you expected. So the practical, physical care of your body matters. It's not because you're being precious, it is because you are being sustainable. Now, one of the biggest shifts I've made in my own writing life is understanding that movement isn't separate from writing. For a long time, I think a lot of us have absorbed this idea that a serious writer sits still at the desk for hours. Head down, fingers flying, pure focus. And look, sometimes we do need deep focus. Sometimes we need to stay with the scene, the chapter, or the train of thought. And sometimes we even get lost in that so that we do write and then suddenly we look up and hours have passed. But the body still needs movement. You can have the best ergonomic chair in the world and still feel awful if you sit in it for hours without changing position. And that's why I love having different options. Sometimes I sit, sometimes I stand, sometimes I walk slowly on the treadmill while I'm doing lighter writing tasks, particularly when I'm revising or brainstorming. And sometimes I use my bouncy ball to sit on because it keeps my body a little more awake and it activates my core muscles. Sometimes I even get on my rebounder for a few minutes between writing sessions because it helps me shift my energy. Your version might be so much simpler, and that's absolutely fine too. It might be just standing up between writing sprints. It could be stretching your shoulders before you open your document. It might be walking around the house while you think through the next scene. It doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to become conscious, because writing momentum isn't only about how many words you can get out before your body protests. Real writing momentum is about being able to come back again and again every single day and then the day after that. That means we have to treat our body as part of the process, not as an inconvenience that we drag along behind us. Now, having said all this, I need to call myself out on something because I love tools. I love gadgets and I love trying new writing apps and fun things that are going to help me to write, or at least I hope will. I love researching the clever little gadgets that promise to make writing easier. And some of those tools genuinely help. My sit-stand desk helps me. My treadmill helps me. My ergonomic keyboard helps me. My husband can't use it because it's a split keyboard, so he has no idea how to use it, but it really does help my wrists and my positioning. My multi-monitor setups help me too, especially when I'm working across notes and research and my podcast plans. But tools can also become a very respectable looking form of procrastination. And this is where the story from the beginning of the episode comes back in. When your body feels uncomfortable, your mind might go looking for the fix, and that can be wise. But it can also become a loop. You find one possible solution, then another, and suddenly you're deep in reviews, comparisons, and shopping carts. And because it all relates to writing, it feels like you're doing something for your book. But at some point, you have to ask, is this helping me write? Or is this helping me avoid the discomfort of beginning and the page? There's a difference between making a practical adjustment that supports your writing and making your setup the next condition you have to meet before you allow yourself to write. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself. Is this tool helping me return to the page, or is it giving me a clever way of staying away from it? The question and your answer is going to tell you a lot. Because sometimes the answer is yes, this tool is genuinely helping. I need the better keyboard. I need the chair that supports my back. I need to move the screen so my neck feels better. And sometimes the answer is I'm using this search for the perfect setup to avoid the imperfect writing session that I could actually be writing right now. And that's not something to shame yourself for. It's just something to notice and be aware of. As writers, we're so good at dressing up avoidance as preparation. So yes, care for your body, make the changes that matter, and invest where it's useful and possible. But always remember to come back to the page, because the tool's there to support the writing. It's not there to replace it. So here's the practical exercise for this week. I want you to do a simple writing setup audit. And I do mean simple. This is not a full office makeover. And this isn't a shopping spree, as much as that would be awesome. And this is also not permission to spend 3 hours reorganising your desk instead of writing. But what I want you to do is before your next writing session, sit exactly where you usually sit when you are going to write. Put your hands where they normally go. Look at the screen the way you normally look at it, and then pause for 30 seconds and notice what your body's telling you. Notice your shoulders. Notice your wrists. Notice your back. And that's enough. Where do you feel the strain? Where do you feel supported? And where does your body feel like it's doing extra work? Then choose one adjustment, just one. Maybe you bring your keyboard closer. Maybe you lift your screen. Maybe you set a timer to remind yourself to get up and move after sitting. Just one adjustment and then write. After the session, take another 30 seconds and ask, did that help? That's it. And that is how you start to build a writing setup that supports you. You observe, then you adjust, then you write. And over time, those small changes compound. You begin to understand what your body needs to write well. You begin to see the difference between a writing block and a physical friction point. And you begin to make your writing space a place your body can return to with more ease. And this brings us back to the deeper point. Your writing setup isn't separate from your writing momentum. Your body isn't separate from your creativity. The way you physically meet the page matters because you're not a machine producing words. You're a human being bringing a book into the world through your mind, your body, and your imagination. So if your body has been asking for care, listen to it. Shift your position, stretch your shoulders, give your hands a break. And if pain has become part of the pattern, ask for proper professional support. This isn't about making writing precious or complicated. It's about making writing sustainable long term because your book needs you for more than one heroic burst of effort. It needs you steady enough to keep coming back to the page. And when your body feels more supported, your creative energy has more room to move. Now, before we close today, if you're listening to this before the 30th of June, I'd love to invite you to my free masterclass, Write to Your Wiring, Discover Your NLP Modality and How It Shapes the Way You Write. In this session, I'll be helping you understand how your natural processing style shapes the way you think, create, and access your book. Because the more you understand how you're wired to write, the easier it becomes to build a writing process that actually supports you. You'll find all the details in the show notes, or you can head to madisonmichaels.com/masterclass and save your spot. So my friends, this week, take 10 minutes and look at your writing setup with fresh eyes, not from judgment, but from care. Ask yourself, what is one physical change that would make writing feel easier on my body? Then make that one change, open the document and write. Because your story matters, your book matters, and remember, you are the vessel for your story. And your body is the way that the story will flow through you and onto the page. So look after it, my friends. Until next time, take care and let's write the darn book together. My friend, I hope today's episode gave you exactly what you needed for your writing journey. And if it did, would you take 30 seconds to share it with another writer who's struggling to start or finish their book? And if you're loving the show, I'd be so grateful if you left a quick review. It means the world to me and truly makes my day to know that this podcast is helping you. And as you head back into your week, I hope you feel more supported and connected to your creativity. And remember, you're a vessel for the story. So let the words flow through you and onto the page. All right, I'm off to refill my cup of liquid gold and go and do a little writing of my own. Take care, and I'll meet you back here in the next episode of Write the Darn Book.